All right, let's set the scene. Imagine this with me. It's Athens, 399 BC. We're in a cramped prison cell. There's a 70-year-old man, and he's just calm. But all around him, his friends are openly weeping because he's about to pick up a cup of poison and drink it, a death sentence from the city he called home.
And you see, that's the kicker. That's the great, terrible irony of this whole story. This is Athens we're talking about, the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of democracy, a beacon of freedom and culture. And it's about to do something so monstrous it will go down in history. That old man is Socrates. And get this, his death warrant wasn't signed by some king or a tyrant. Nope, it was the result of a democratic vote cast by a jury of 500 of his own fellow citizens. Which brings us to the one massive question at the heart of it all.
I mean, why? Why on earth would the world's first great democracy execute its most brilliant philosopher, a man whose crime was basically just asking too many questions? That is exactly what we are going to figure out.
So, this was the monstrous act. But what about Socrates himself? How did he face it? With a kind of calm that was frankly shocking. He just took the cup of hemlock, and with his last words, he seemed to suggest that maybe death itself was the ultimate cure. Let's rewind a bit and see what led him to this very moment.
So what did Socrates actually do to end up here? Well, he wasn't a teacher in any way you'd recognize. He was something else, something way more irritating to the powers that be. They called him the GADFLY of Athens. He pioneered this whole new way of thinking we now call the Socratic Method. The point wasn't for him to give you answers, not at all. It was all about questioning the answers you thought you already had, pushing and prodding until your own beliefs just collapsed under the weight of their own contradictions. Here's how it would go down. He'd wander up to some big-shot general in the marketplace and ask, "Excuse me, what is courage?" The general, puffing out his chest, would say, "Easy, it's standing your ground in battle." And Socrates would go, interesting. But what if a tactical retreat is the only way to win the war? Is that cowardly? And just like that, within a few minutes, this super confident general would be tied up in logical knots, forced to admit he didn't really have a clue what courage was after all. So Socrates had these two great metaphors for what he did. First, he was the gadfly, that annoying fly that stings a big lazy horse. Athens was the horse, and he was sent by the gods to wake it up. But he also saw himself as a philosophical midwife, not birthing babies, but helping other people give birth to their own ideas. Now, to really get why Athens would want to swat its gadfly, you have to understand the mood in the city at the time. This was not a stable, confident place. This was a democracy in deep, deep trouble, traumatized, paranoid, and just plain scared. The years leading up to this trial were just awful for Athens. We're talking about a brutal 27-year-long war with their rivals, Sparta, a military expedition that was a complete and utter disaster. And then the final humiliation, defeat. And with that defeat came a vicious puppet dictatorship installed by Sparta, known as the 30 Tyrants. The city was broken, and it was looking for someone to blame. And guess who they zeroed in on? In this climate of fear, Athenians started connecting the dots, and those dots led straight back to Socrates. You see, two of his most famous associates, Alcibiades and Cretia, ended up becoming the city's most hated traitors. To the average Athenian, this wasn't just a coincidence. It looked like cause and effect. They saw a teacher whose students questioned everything, and then those students went on to betray the state. They blamed the teacher for the students' crimes, and they unfairly lumped him in with the sophists, paid tutors who people already distrusted. So, all of this fear, this resentment, it finally boils over and comes to a head at his trial. And it's here that Socrates defends not just his life, but his entire philosophy, a philosophy built on one core idea, the unexamined life. Now, the official charges on the books were impiety and corrupting the youth, but let's be real, that wasn't what this was really about. The real charge was that he made powerful people uncomfortable. He was on trial for questioning everything Athens held secret, from its gods to its leaders. So, you'd expect him to beg for his life, right? That's what people did, but not Socrates. No way. He basically flipped the script and put the jury on trial. He didn't just defend himself, he doubled down, claiming that his mission to question them all was a sacred duty given to him by the gods themselves, and that by doing it, he was actually the city's greatest gift. So The choice he faced became incredibly clear. He could have suggested a lesser punishment, like being exiled from the city. And you know what? He probably would have gotten it. But for him, that would have meant admitting his entire life's work was wrong. And for Socrates, a life where he couldn't practice philosophy wasn't a life worth living at all. And that leads him to his ultimate, defiant, and most famous statement, the very core of his being. He told the court, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He was making it clear he would rather die than stop asking questions. The jury, completely offended by what they saw as his arrogance, voted for death. You know, the funny thing is, Athens thought they were getting rid of a problem. What they actually did was make him immortal. By executing Socrates, they turned him into a martyr and guaranteed that his legacy of questions would never, ever die. And I'm not exaggerating here. His influence has been absolutely massive, shaping the entire course of Western thought for over 2,400 years. His questions outlived his accusers, they outlived his jury, and they outlived the entire Athenian Empire. Seriously, his legacy is just woven into the fabric of our world. That Socratic method, it's the foundation for modern law and science. The whole ideal of an examined life is central to ethics. And his courageous stand against the state has inspired everyone from Thoreau to Martin Luther King Jr. And so, Socrates leaves us with a challenge. It's the exact same one he posed on the streets of Athens all those years ago. And it's a question that feels more important now than maybe ever before. Take a hard look at what you believe. Are you absolutely certain that you know what you think you know?